All right, it's time for public comment. Many of you put on your development policy. I'll call your name, but if you say, maybe you have something else you want to speak to because you had a chance to speak, let me know. So, E.B. Worthington?
Madam Chairman, I'm D.B. Worthington. You answered my question of whether you had asked the WLA why we were chosen Outstanding Library as the meeting was ending last month. And no one heard your answer, I felt, except me. I didn't contact WLA because I already knew the answer before I asked the question, is how you responded. Why would you ask a question you already knew the answer to Terry, unless it was a bully tactic? The next thing I'd like us all to think about is how did we get here month after month? And then I realized my grandfather, Corporal Henry Forrest Worthington, joined the Powder River Cavalry in Gillette, Wyoming, June 1918. He died in France, August 30th, 1918. He's on the memorial at Legacy Park. My father, Staff Sergeant Henry Forrest Worthington, was with Patton's 3rd Army Headquarters, Signal Corps, World War II. He spent 3.5 years away from home, from Knutsford, England, to Lorraine, Normandy after D-Day, to Luxembourg City during the Battle of the Bulge in Bastogne. He was getting our American troops what they needed, where they needed it, and when they needed it. My uncle, Andy Comperry Jr., spent his time on the 38th parallel in Korea. My dear friend Tony Cass, a corporal, killed in action, May 26, 1967, Quang Tin, Vietnam. He can be found on panel 20E, line 111, Vietnam Veterans War Memorial, Washington, D.C. And I have several former students who graduated from Kendall County High School and then served in the military. One whose convoy was hit with an IED in Afghanistan. 6 of his squad members were killed, and he was severely injured. He was a proud Marine and spent 2 tours overseas. He wanted to be a lifer until he is unfortunately medically discharged. And ladies and gentlemen, that's how we all got here. That's what gave you the right to be appointed to a position you had little or no experience in, and you could walk in and change it all simply because you can. I'm curious what you've done to earn this right, except support the mass resistance movement. I don't see anything you've done except wreak havoc and attempt to fix something that wasn't broken from the get-go. Well, it's broken now, for sure, and you've done it under the auspices of religion and Save the Children.
Thank you. Jenny Sorensen? Bruce Williams? Susan Sisti?
Susan Sisti, thank you for letting me speak again. I'm going to continue what I discussed earlier. This one is called Porn as an Erototoxin, and it's also by the same institute. And I hope you'll read the entire thing. If you go to the second paragraph, it says, when pornography is viewed, the autonomic nervous system overrides volitional control, especially in the absence of frontal lobe inhibition in the person's brain. It then goes to the visual cortex, down the spinal cord to the reproductive organs, overriding and hijacking the frontal cortical areas of the brain where reason and cognition are located. The process occurs without the viewer's informed consent or awareness, thus begins the addiction. If you go to the bolded part, it talks about the hyperfrontal lobe syndrome. it's in the frontal lobe, and this is where it gets overwhelmed with all the toxic chemicals during porn addiction and sexual addiction, and it actually damages the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is the part of the brain that has to do with higher learning, deep emotional bonding, judgment, forming relationships, exercise of caution, and connecting with God. And this area is can be more, it's damaged also by drug abuse, but it's damaged more by pornography addiction. And that includes all forms of sex. And if you go to the next page, I'll just touch on a couple. One of them is the false etrus mating call, where a porn addict sees the victim almost as something in the wild that needs to be mated. And studies show that a man that's addicted to porn has less empathy for women, less respect for women's rights, and many things like that. And I think we can see a little bit of lack of empathy in our society. So I hope you take the time to read the entire article. Number 9, it hijacks love of the beloved and faith God attachments. And 10, it produces a failure to bond, divorce, child molestation, trafficking, and copycat sex crimes. And this is study was put together by professionals. There's also a page on the website of legal rulings. And again, they've been doing this for 40 years. It's a wealth of information that will help you guys. And some have commented that there's not porn in the library. There are books of incest that I literally cannot read. I get nauseated. I've done a lot of research. We've also know there are several full-blown porn videos were found on the teen website. Actually, some boys reported it. I don't know if I've told you that. They reported it to their pastor. But there's books about incest involving the entire family that I just can't even look at it. And so I'm so glad that you guys are taking a stand to protect our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Sisti.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. Get to go to a lot of city council meetings, get to go to a lot of county commissioner meetings. Big topic today is mental health. Mental health. And we as a community, as we should be very concerned about mental health. So I'd like to speak to that today, and how these books relate to mental health. It was said in the Gillette News Record, our children need to have access to information to explore their sexuality so that they can be empowered to protect themselves. That's not sex education. That's sexual indoctrination. Brookings Institute says education could take advantage of the malleability of the child's brain to bolster the cognitive, social, and emotional skills that can positively change the trajectory of youths. Sexual indoctrination and exploration will negatively change their trajectory. This is what we're looking at today. According to the NIH, National Institute of Health, how sexual indoctrination will negatively change a child's trajectory. The frontal lobe syndrome that my wife alluded to is a broad term used to describe the damage of a higher functioning process of the brain. And isn't the library about educating children? Isn't that what it should be? Not indoctrinating them, not causing mental health issues and problems. These are professionals. This is the National Institute of Health. This is a government agency. Some things that can happen with these frontal lobe issues is inability to solve problems, organize tasks, reduce creativity. Is this what we want? Impaired judgment, reduced sense of taste or smell. It even has something to do with that. Depression, difficulty controlling emotions, low motivation, poor attention span, being easily distracted, odd sexual behaviors, impulsive or risky behavior, and trouble with communication. So this frontal lobe issue, which is a very important part of your brain, by the way, it's like brakes on a car. And do we allow cars in town without brakes? That would be a disaster. And so simply put, the frontal area of the brain is where the braking system is located, and it becomes damaged. So I propose to you today that your decisions are helping the mental health of the children of Gillette, Wyoming.
Sure, Bruce, go ahead.
This frontal lobe problem that you're talking about, all these studies they've done, they have not as of yet coordinated those to the actual sexual situations they're talking about. All they know is that the frontal lobe problems are there, and so are the sexual problems kids have. That does not mean one causes the other, or the other causes the one. That has not been settled. What they have settled lately on observing the brain is there's a difference between male and female brains. The right side of me and the rest of the males in here have a whole lot more nerve cells in them than the right side of most of the females in here. The left side of the male, or female, kind of smaller area up here, is almost callous. Not, but it isn't. It's the nature of the nerve cells that are there. There are distinct differences in them that they can see in MRIs. And sexual activity does not originate in this part of the brain or this part. It originates up in the middle of your brain there in your involuntary muscle system, or nerve system. That's the first thing that gets active when something outside of you excites you. It is not your main brain. Okay? Now, what that tells us is, when they checked LGBTQ people, such as trans women, they had women brains more like a woman than the penis that they had. And the same with trans men. Those women with boobs and other parts had a much more male-like brain than they did a female-like brain. So these people are born that way. So all of this discussion about this does this bad, that does that bad, this isn't right, that isn't right, it's all a matter of what happens when you're born. You don't get a choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Christy Garretts? David Buckmeyer?
I just like to comment on a couple things about indoctrination and grooming and things that are purportedly going on in the library. I mean, the library, you cannot put a religious tint on it. It is public. The country, the United States, was founded as a secular nation. There were many of our founding fathers that were not Christian. John Adams, John Quincy Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin was an atheist. And some people say deist, but most say atheist. Thomas Jefferson wrote his own Bible. He took the New Testament and he wrote the Jefferson Bible out of it. It's basically 100 pages New Testament with all the magic gone. And that's our founding fathers. That's who founded this nation. And to sit here and listen to all this going on, it's not based in fact. It's There's a lot of other places in this town that indoctrination goes on. The library is not one of them. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Laura Cox?
I want to thank the library board and the director for listening to public comment. We appreciate the effort that you put into understanding the community's views. on this
Laura, you
issue.
gonna hold that closer?
Yes. Those like me who are speaking against the surge of sexually assaulted children are not trying to restrict art. And we're not trying to keep information about health issues or basic sex education under lock and key. We're trying to prevent harm to minors. Sex trafficking is on the rise in America. Of all the cases that were reported in 2021, 66% of those cases involved children. The Federal Register reports that sexual videos and images of children online is at an all-time high. And most of these kids are befriended by their eventual trafficker online. So what has led to this increase in recent years? One trend is that has contributed is that a lot of kids are unsupervised and they have access to the internet. Many kids spend hours a day on their own and they choose to spend that time searching the internet for community. Without strong social connections with family or friends, it's easy for children to be influenced by strangers with bad intentions. Another fact that cannot be ignored is that we have become desensitized in today's hypersexualized society. Our guard has been lowered. We're exposed to graphic images everywhere, on television, movies, the internet, just going down the highway. You're smacked in the face by it, whether we want it or not. It's in the news, it's the topic of conversation. Not even Disneyland is rated G anymore. And now kids see sexual materials at school, in the public library, that never used to be there before. This material doesn't send the conventional message of don't talk to strangers. The message in a lot of these books encourages kids to push the limits, try something new, be accepting of adults who approach them wanting to make friends. It's the exact opposite of the warning that adults have always given to children in the past. Leading children to adopt lifestyles that are not practiced by anyone in their family, informing kids about political ideology, familiarizing children with sexual practice and normalizing this behavior without the knowledge or consent of their parents is the very definition of grooming. It is not the best interest of the child to make them comfortable with adults that show sexual interest in them. Sharing information of a sexual nature only serves to make them more comfortable with the topic and therefore more vulnerable. We want to protect their instinct to defend themselves, not lower the barrier and make them more likely to become victims in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Cohen?
Robert Cohen. Yes, I've been listening to various attempts to present scientific justifications, information about various aspects of sexuality and the effects various sexual practices can have. I just hope that the library board will not institute any policy that would prevent a book allowing us to read all about these studies that have been presented here in the library to make up our minds about how we feel. Please don't pass any restrictive measures that will prevent us from reading about these scientific findings. Thank you.
Thank you. Priscilla Hickson?
Hello, my name is Priscilla Hickson. And just for your information, all of the statements that I'll be making today are thoroughly documented in the footnotes here, but I am not going to take time to read all those, that documentation, because it'll take too much time. Most of this stuff started in about 1980 when the explicit sexual materials began to be presented actually in public schools. The first school district that was where this was started was in the inner city of Washington, D.C., where it was primarily all black children. Now this very same school district has progressed to where now it leads the nation in out of wedlock births. 95% of the children, the young ladies in this school district now become pregnant. That's one advantage, one thing that's come from this intense sex education. And now we're gonna, some people are complaining about these brain studies. I have an entire thing here from NIH that I've shared some things in the past about how brain studies, and it is specifically towards sexual information, not all these other things. They show that the images, obscene images trigger endogenous neurochemical cocktails of naturally occurring psychoactive substances. He discovered that in the sexual area that opens a back alley for the amygdala to receive direct inputs, this renders immature brains are unable to make fully rational decisions because this part of the brain that's working or not working is the control planning and reasoning. Digital images have given neuroscientists the ability to prove that teenagers are unable to make rational decisions because, contrary to popular belief, they are not developed, so they cannot make rational decisions. This other article that I've referred to sometimes, they want to do something just because it's going to give them a thrill, and they don't care if it could be a bad outcome. That is not important to them. Science has shown that children cannot process sexually oriented text or images, let alone discern between their intended use for education as opposed to stimulation. I always have this problem. Therefore, stimuli such as sexually explicit material dramatically overwhelm children's underdeveloped cortex. Oh, and I just want to skip ahead. A high percentage, like 1 in 4 girls has been sexually abused, and 1 in 6 boys. And when and it causes them to have the PTSD, like it has been mentioned before. When they see these images, they are thrown back into their PTSD problem with reliving all their sexual experiences. Thank you.
Gail Cruz?
Thank you for letting us speak. And this is all directed toward, remember, children, not adults. And I've done research, and man, I didn't know what to bring because there are scads of it on the internet. It's not like you have to search this out on the effects, psychological, neurological effects of pornography on children. It's just there. So I encourage everybody to go home, get online, and start educating yourself on what pornography for children actually does. And yes, we do have pornography in our library. I've read it, and there is nothing I can think of to add to it that would make it pornography. What would you add to it? It is pornography. The fact that it has other words around it means nothing. It doesn't make the pornography disappear, does it? So I have an article here from the American College of Pediatricians. It's a report on the impact of pornography on children. I think they might have something to say about this. And this is for school-age children, grade school children. Pornography exposure at these young ages often results in anxiety for the child. Children report feelings of disgust, shock, embarrassment, anger, fear, and sadness after viewing pornography. These children can suffer all of the symptoms of anxiety and depression, just what we need. They may become obsessed with acting out adult sexual acts that they have seen, and this can be very disruptive and disturbing to the child's peers who witness or are victimized by this behavior. Well, that's comforting. Children under 12 years old who have viewed pornography are statistically more likely to sexually assault their peers. In sum, children exposed to pornographic materials are at risk from a broad range of maladaptive behaviors in psychopathology. That's from Pediatric Association, not from Gail Cruz, okay? There are some other things I thought, this is for youth, for teens. From the same report, male subjects demonstrated increased callousness toward women. Oh, yay. Subjects considered the crime of rape less serious. Subjects were more accepting of non-marital sexual activity and non-coital sexual practices such as oral and anal sex. So healthy for children. Subjects became more interested in more extreme and deviant forms of pornography. Subjects valued marriage less and were twice as likely to believe marriage may become obsolete. So, thank you. I just would suggest we concentrate on the science.
Thank you. Sherry England?
Hi, my name is Sherry England, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Listening to you, the library board, I think I understand that you want to keep books out of the hands of innocent children and teens, particularly those books that have any sexual content or what you call sexualizing children and teens. Everyone here and everyone can all agree that we don't want to sexualize children. We want to protect them. No one says we don't. Here's the issue I would like you to explore or to consider. What about those children and teens who have been sexually abused? As you stated, 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 6 boys. What about those children that have been sexually abused? What about those children and teens who cannot, for whatever reason, talk with their parents about their abuse or just their curiosity? I know a 12-year-old and that child's parents. The child has a great relationship with their parents and has been asking them, what does 69 mean? What is cum? What are blowjobs? What is a pearl necklace? This child didn't learn this from a book. The child learned it from the child's peers, 5th and 6th graders. And those children heard it from their families. But the child could have just as well heard it on TV or the internet, etc. Most who are sexually violated are done so by family members or the family's acquaintances. What will happen to the children and the teens that cannot question their parents or another trusted adult? Does this development policy serve those children and teens? They hear the sexual terms or already have had sexual contact and are wanting to learn more. Knowledge empowers kids to get help and make better decisions. The books that I have read that have been challenged give correct information on pregnancy, STIs, sexuality, who to contact to get help, and much more. How will you serve these kids?
Thank you. Deb Michaels.
A lot of the previous speakers have already stated a lot of the things that I feel are
correct or incorrect with what you're doing, what your intent is. I think that you have certain ideas which that you like to propose that is not necessarily part of the entire community. So my comments will probably be more directed to all of the little pots. But in general, all the things that you're trying to do, and I think you believe it's with your good intent, your good heart, and the ideas of the mores, the theories that you follow and that you believe in. So I don't think it's with ill will, but it's intriguing that there's so much detail that all of the people who present to you and that you have in mind are just so detailed. This is a general idea. Library, if you go back to the original ideas of libraries, they're the foundation for people, no matter whatever race, no matter what their belief system is, but they want to have avenues which to rely on diverse thoughts. These are things that people can learn about, whichever kind of theories that they are curious about. And as we all get older, we change our ideas and we become different. Jenny Sorensen was amazing in saying what she thinks, and it takes a lot of guts. Maybe she made it up, I don't think so, but if she didn't, I admire the fact that she could come and say that in public. And I'd like to say that there are things that are going around in our community right now that are coming from different avenues to influence all of what's going on in this community. For instance, on Saturday, there were various flyers that were very anti-Jewish, distributed in this community by a really weird way. They put them in a plastic baggie with a bunch of rice, and they threw them into people's driveways so that they could make sure that the weather didn't get them, but they got down into people's driveways. You're going to hear a lot about it. And if anybody in here knows, or if any of you have this put into your driveway, please let me know. And also please let the police department know, because they're investigating it. It's promotion of hatred, promotion of control, and that's what we're facing. I went before the county commissioners a few months ago, and I told them the only thing I imparted to them was, you're going to get sued. So everything that you do as a board, you have to take that into mind. The county is going to get sued. The board will be named. I don't know about the individuals. Maybe Charlie can tell you a little bit more about that. Keep in mind that censorship silences meaningful social change. If you don't like the social change, that's what you're working toward. We're a community, should be united and loving.
Love of Jesus.
Thank you.
Deb Proctor?
Based on some of the board's discussions, I have a couple of requests. I believe that the content analysis policy needs to be posted, and it needs to be available in writing so people can pick that up, please. I also think that your proposed written policy, I mean, I've talked to Terry and I think it's going to be improved, that how you can connect it on the library board site is easily available, because I had difficulty finding, and then another person in this room did, so I hope you address that. And, let's see, the sticker policy, the written comments. On your agenda, you have written comments, and I believe those should be available to the public. We were here in attendance, we've heard the oral comments, but I believe the public, in transparency, also needs to see those written comments. So please make those available by posting and also in paper copy, all right? Now, please accept my compliments and gratitude to the Campbell County Public Library staff and administration for the wonderful job they do every day, helping our citizens to find and enjoy diverse cultural opportunities for reading, learning, and entertainment. CCPL truly does provide paths to a universe of information with personal service and technology, as it's written in the mission statement. They do it all with a smile, and I much appreciate that. Campbell County is fortunate to have such a dedicated staff who are willing to work hard to maintain stellar services no matter the challenges. I much appreciate the staff, the director, and Campbell County Public Library. It is a taxpayer-funded institution that provides unlimited opportunities for all of our citizens. May the longtime success and respect for CCPL continue long into the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caleb Elkins? Hugh Bennett? Carol Meyer?
Thank you, Board, for hearing me. This is definitely a war on minors in this country from the womb to the young adults. These explicit books feed minors into experimenting in risky sex practices. These books promote multiple sex partners, incest, pedophilia, group sex, vulgar language, drug use, pornography, without any caution about the consequences. These sexual practices are promoted without mentioning the life-changing effects of STDs, pregnancies, cancers from HPV and hepatitis, HIV, surgeries that can lead to incontinence, constant pain, suicidal thoughts, and not being able to have children or to enjoy sex in the future. These are too many consequences. There are too many consequences to count. In the latest Life Science online science publication that I get, statistics have come out, and one headline reads, "You're probably never heard of this STD. It becomes the next superbug. It's called mycoplasia genitalium, or MG. Discovered in 1981, it affects both men and women, often mistaken for chlamydia, and treated with antibiotics that don't work well with it. There is no test for it in the U.S., so it's hard for doctors to treat it properly. 1 to 2% of the people carry it asymptomatically." Another headline reads, "Syphilis hit a 70-year high. Sexually transmitted infection shows no sign of slowing. Syphilis leapt to a level not seen since the 1950s, but chlamydia and gonorrhea far outpaced those of syphilis, and there was a 6% increase between 2020 and 2021. There's a strain that's resistant to 5 classes of antibiotics, and the CDC says in a short time, it'll be resistant to all cures." In conclusion, let's not promote risky sex to minors before they are mature enough to handle STDs, pregnancies, and the effects of surgeries that are not ready to be bombarded by this kind of exposure to pornography. Ted Bundy was exposed to soft porn at age 13. He went dumpster diving and found hardcore porn. Our kids don't have to dumpster dive. They can just come to the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Lyle Austin, want to speak again?
I pass.
That is it. Board comments? One comment I have is, I have my library board, catalog, what's it called? My library card, when I got my card, and maybe like flip and see it. I got it in 2007, and last thing I checked out when I got this last month was 3/25 of this year. I know Chelsea has hers here, I don't know if anybody else bothered to do the challenge, okay? Any other board comments?
Can you hear me? I have a community standard that I've been thinking about, and in my representation of being a member of this board, I am a parent, and first as a parent, I protect my kids, and I'm the oldest of 6 siblings, so I also protect my siblings, and if you ever looked at my Clifton Strike, you'd know. But I think someone out there said something about, what about the kid who can't go to their parent to talk about a hard topic? And I say, what about the kid who is browsing the shelf and is innocent and is exposed to this material? I think it goes both ways, but I'd like to err on the side of caution. As a member of Campbell County for 10 years now, I think our county is represented by conservatism and caution, and I'd rather err on the side of caution than err on the other side.
Well, on the flip side of that, they can still go to the adult section and find a lot of that information.
I didn't know that was a challenge. Actually, I did, but I forgot. I don't believe they issued a library card to me when I first started going to the library here, when I came back to Gillette in 1963. I think it was my mother that handled all of that. And if anybody was familiar with the interview that I went through, that was the very first question that I answered that they didn't even ask, that yes, I do have a library card. I originally got it back when in '77, and I made sure that I had an updated card before I even applied for the board. So that answers that, I hope.
Any other comments? All right. Did I miss anything? All right. We're going to go into executive session, so I need you guys to file a quick, please.
Need a motion
No, we need to.
I move to go into executive session.
for personnel?
For personnel.